In a serene Los Angeles park, a radiant pregnant black woman in a stunning red gown faced a hateful police officer. He sought to humiliate her, pushing her to the brink. But when he made one dangerous move, her raw protective instinct, honed by years of discipline, ignited an unforgettable response that changed everything. If her story resonates with you, we'd be honored if you consider rating it out of 10 in the comments below, and perhaps join our community for more heartwarming and uplifting tales. The crisp Los Angeles morning air carried the faint scent of dew and eucalyptus, mingling with the distant earthy aroma of freshly watered grass. It was a perfect day, the kind that made the city's sprawling parks feel like tranquil oases. In one such haven, under the spreading branches of an ancient oak, Serena Jenkins moved with a fluid, almost meditative grace. She was in her late 30s, her skin glowing, her dark, braided hair artfully swept up, revealing the elegant line of her neck. What made her stand out was her attire, a beautiful, flowing red gown, not what one would expect for a morning in the park. But this wasn't just any gown, it was a special occasion dress for a photo shoot later that day, and Serena, ever practical, decided to incorporate her morning routine. Her visibly pregnant belly, round and prominent, was gently supported by her hands as she performed a series of slow, controlled stretches. She moved through gentle cat-cow poses, then transitioned into a modified warrior sequence, her movements precise, deliberate, and deeply connected to her breath. This was her daily ritual, a sacred time for herself and the life growing within her, a testament to her profession as a seasoned yoga and martial arts instructor. She was on her way to her final prenatal checkup, a visit that filled her with quiet anticipation, a fluttering joy for the baby soon to arrive. Serena lived a life built on discipline, strength, and inner calm, qualities she cultivated not just for herself, but also to teach others. She believed in finding peace within chaos and strength in vulnerability. As she completed a final deep breath, her eyes closed for a moment in serene focus, the distant hum of traffic suddenly seemed to sharpen. A patrol car, its dark windows reflecting the morning light, glided silently to a halt nearby. From it emerged Officer Roy Vance, a large man whose uniform seemed to strain against his broad shoulders. His face was stern, his jaw set, and his reputation for aggressive patrols and disproportionate stops in diverse neighborhoods preceded him like a cold front. His partner, Officer Maria Rodriguez, a younger officer with cautious, observant eyes, remained by the car, a flicker of subtle discomfort already forming on her face as she watched Vance approach Serena. Serena slowly lowered her arms, her eyes opening. The shift from her serene, controlled moment of self-care and anticipation to this sudden, intrusive presence was jarring. The peaceful rhythm of the park was abruptly disrupted, replaced by a growing sense of unease. It was a silent warning, a foreboding shift that foreshadowed the shattering of her calm world. Officer Vance moved with a heavy, purposeful stride, his boots crunching lightly on the gravel path. His presence alone felt like an accusation. He stopped a few feet from Serena, his large frame casting a long shadow over her. His hand rested conspicuously on his holstered weapon, a subtle but unmistakable gesture of authority and implicit threat. His tone, initially flat, hardened noticeably as his gaze swept over Serena, lingering dismissively on her flowing red gown, then her pregnant belly, and finally her athletic shoes. It was a look that weighed and judged. "Ma'am," he began, his voice laced with an unspoken accusation, a cold edge that cut through the pleasant morning air. "Do you mind telling me why you're creating a disturbance here?" There was no good morning, no polite inquiry, no preamble about a perceived infraction. Just an immediate, baseless accusation. Serena felt a knot tighten in her stomach, of disturbance. She had been stretching, silently, peacefully. Serena calmly straightened, her hands still resting on her belly. "Officer, I'm simply doing some gentle prenatal stretches. I'm a yoga instructor, and this is part of my morning routine before my final prenatal checkup." She kept her voice even, her expression polite, trying to diffuse the immediate tension. She even gestured vaguely towards the doctor's appointment card tucked into her small bag nearby. He scoffed, a short, sharp sound that conveyed utter disbelief and contempt. "Stretching, in a public park like this, looks more like loitering to me. Or maybe something else. His eyes narrowed, sweeping over her again, his gaze lingering on the vibrant red of her dress. You seem a little out of place here, with all that movement. The implication was clear. She didn't fit his mental picture of who should be in this park, doing what she was doing. He saw her as an anomaly, an outsider, and therefore suspicious. He took a step closer, his shadow falling fully over her now. I'm going to need you to pack it up and leave. Now, this isn't a performance space. He didn't give a valid reason, just a dismissive wave of his hand towards the park exit. The unfairness stung. She wasn't bothering anyone. She wasn't breaking any rules. Serena's heart pounded with a growing sense of dread, but she forced herself to remain calm, drawing on years of teaching discipline. Officer, I'm not disturbing anyone. I have a right to be here. This is a public park, and I'm not breaking any laws. My doctor's appointment is soon, and I'm just finishing up my stretches. Her voice remained steady, a testament to her training, but she felt the insidious bite of his blatant prejudice, the unsettling feeling of being targeted for no reason other than who she was. She could feel Officer Rodriguez shifting uncomfortably by the patrol car, her gaze fixed on the ground, a clear sign that even she recognized the absurdity of Vance's behavior. Officer Vance's face hardened, his jaw clenching. He clearly didn't like being calmly contradicted. I don't appreciate your attitude, Mom, he barked, his voice rising, sharp and aggressive. Are you resisting a lawful order? Because I can make this much harder for you and your delicate condition. The phrase delicate condition was laced with sarcasm, a sneer that dismissed her pregnancy as a weakness or an excuse. His raised voice instantly drew the attention of nearby park goers, a young couple walking their dog, an elderly man reading on a bench, a few cyclists slowing down. They began to stop, curious then concerned, their gazes shifting between the agitated officer and the calmly defiant pregnant woman in red. He deliberately invaded her personal space, taking another step closer, his imposing figure looming over her. Serena instinctively stepped back, clutching her belly protectively, her gaze locking onto his. Officer, I'm not resisting, she said, her voice a low, fierce murmur. I am pregnant. I have a right to be here, and I am not doing anything illegal. He scoffed again, a derisive sound. Oh, you're pregnant? Is that why you're being so difficult? Trying to play the pregnancy card, are we? He sneered, his eyes raking over her body. Just another excuse, isn't it? Get out of my park. His words were sharp, accusatory, designed to cut her down, to strip her of her dignity in front of the growing crowd. Then he escalated his demands, clearly intending to humiliate her further. You say you're a martial arts instructor, he challenged, his voice dripping with condescension, disbelief contorting his features. Prove it. Show me some of that discipline you teach. Do a proper stance, right here, or maybe a jump. He spread his arms wide, inviting the performance, a cruel smirk on his face. He fully intended to publicly shame her, knowing her pregnancy made such demands impossible or dangerous. He wanted to expose her, in his twisted mind, as a fraud, or simply to see her squirm. Serena's face, which had been pale with a mix-off anger and fear, now flushed deep with indignation. Her body tensed, not in preparation for a fight, but in a desperate effort to maintain control. Officer, I cannot do that, she said, her voice tight with suppressed rage. It would be dangerous for my pregnancy. You know that. He laughed, a harsh, dismissive sound that grated on her ears. Dangerous? Or are you just fragile? Look, you're creating a scene. People are staring. Get out of my park now, or I'll have you detained for disorderly conduct. And believe me, ma'am, a booking photo won't do that beautiful dress any favors, or your reputation. He continued to badger her, warning her about obstruction, and even insinuated she might be involved in something illegal, loudly questioning her profession and implying she couldn't possibly be a legitimate instructor. He was pushing, cornering her, stripping her dignity bare in front of a rapidly growing, uneasy audience. The public humiliation was complete, leaving Serena feeling utterly exposed, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. She could feel the silent disapproval from some of the onlookers, their phones now discreetly, or not so discreetly, recording. Serena felt a cold wave of dread wash over her, chilling her to the bone, despite the warm morning air. This wasn't just about a baseless accusation or public humiliation anymore. This was about something far more sinister and immediate. Officer Vance's anger had curdled into a palpable menace, his eyes glinting with a dangerous glint. The line between verbal abuse and physical threat had blurred, then vanished entirely. "That's it, ma'am," Officer Vance snarled, his voice low and guttural, no longer feigning professionalism. "You're resisting. You're coming with me." He suddenly lunged forward, his large hand shooting out roughly, aiming straight for her arm, clearly intending to grab her, pull her closer, perhaps to handcuff her or shove her against the nearby patrol car. In that terrifying split second, as his large, meaty hand reached out, Serena felt a sharp, searing jolt of fear for her unborn child. It was a visceral, overwhelming sensation, a primal scream from deep within her maternal core. His aggressive lunge threw her off balance, her feet barely planted from her recent stretch, threatening her precarious stability. A sudden, sharp pain flared in her lower back as she tried instinctively to brace herself, a direct result of the unexpected, violent motion. The pain was like an electric shock, sending a clear, undeniable message to her brain: danger. The truth dawned on her with a blinding, primal clarity. His intent was not just verbally malicious, not just about humiliating her. It was physically dangerous to her and her baby. This was no longer just about dignity. It was an imminent physical threat, a direct assault on the fragile life within her. Her protective instincts, magnified 1,000-fold by her pregnancy and honed by years of disciplined martial arts training, surged through her veins. Every ounce of her focus, every cell in her body, screamed one command, overriding all fear and hesitation: protect. Her body, trained for precision and defense, moved before her mind could even fully process the thought. It was pure, unadulterated instinct, a mother protecting her child. In that precise, desperate moment, as Officer Vance's hand closed just inches from her arm, Serena reacted. It wasn't a thought, it was a reflex, a culmination of years spent teaching her body to react to threats, to find balance and leverage. Fueled by a surge of pure, primal adrenaline and an overwhelming instinct to protect her unborn child, she snapped her leg upwards. It wasn't a full, powerful martial arts kick, the kind she taught in class for maximum impact. Instead, it was a swift, defensive motion born purely of desperation and muscle memory, a precise, controlled snap of a trained limb, aimed not to cause severe injury, but to create immediate space and stop the threat. Her foot, still encased in her comfortable walking shoe, connected sharply and unexpectedly with his face, catching him completely off guard. The impact was a sudden, precise jolt. It wasn't bone-breaking, but it was startling, effective. His head snapped back with a sharp crack, his eyes widening in stunned disbelief. A guttural grunt of surprise and pain erupted from him as he stumbled clumsily backwards, his bulky frame flailing. He swore loudly, clutching at his nose, his swagger instantly gone, replaced by shock and anger. His partner, Officer Maria Rodriguez, gasped audibly, a sharp intake of breath that cut through the sudden silence. She took a visible step back in shock and alarm, her eyes wide, reflecting a mix of disbelief and perhaps even a flicker of relief that Vance had finally overstepped. Serena, her own eyes wide but now filled with a fierce, protective resolve, immediately pulled back. Both hands flew instinctively to her belly, clutching it protectively, her breath coming in ragged, shallow gasps. She had drawn a physical line, a desperate act of self-preservation against a direct, terrifying threat, fueled by her fierce maternal instinct and years of disciplined training. She felt a phantom ache in her lower back, a ghost of the pain from Vance's lunge, reinforcing the necessity of her action. The onlookers, who had been murmuring in uneasy observation, gasped louder now, a collective ripple of shock spreading through the small crowd. Some openly pulled out phones, their cameras already rolling, capturing the raw, explosive moment. Others simply stared, mouths agape, having just witnessed an ordinary morning in the park turn into an extraordinary act of defiance. The air crackled with tension, a mix of fear and a strange, dawning sense of justice. Serena stood her ground, her gaze firm, her posture upright despite the internal tremor. She was no longer just a pregnant woman being humiliated. She was a force of nature, protecting her own. In the chaotic seconds that followed, Officer Rodriguez, her face pale but her movements decisive, stepped forward. She roughly but efficiently handcuffed Serena, following police procedure, though her eyes avoided Serena's, betraying her discomfort. Officer Vance, clutching his now bleeding nose and spitting curses, screamed accusations of assault, demanding Serena's immediate arrest and severe punishment. However, the truth, thanks to the watchful eyes and recording phones of the bystanders, was already beginning to spread. Multiple videos of the entire escalating encounter, from Vance's initial aggressive questions, to his sneering humiliation, to his final, dangerous lunge, and Serena's swift, defensive reaction, were quickly uploaded and went viral across social media platforms. The public outrage was immediate and immense. Hashtags demanding justice for Serena trended, her story becoming a rallying cry against police brutality and racial prejudice. Officer Rodriguez, deeply troubled by what she had witnessed and now facing the irrefutable video evidence that clearly showed Vance's misconduct, became a crucial witness. Her conscience, quietly simmering throughout the ordeal, finally prevailed over any loyalty she might have felt for her partner. She provided a detailed, honest account of the events to Internal Affairs, corroborating Serena's narrative and exposing Vance's egregious behavior. Furthermore, Serena's background as a respected yoga and martial arts instructor, with numerous training videos online demonstrating her disciplined control and defensive techniques, lent significant credibility to her claim of self-defense. Her action was clearly a protective one, not an aggressive attack. A swift and high-profile legal battle ensued, fueled by public outcry and overwhelming evidence. Serena's lawyer passionately argued self-defense, citing excessive force and blatant racial profiling. The media attention was relentless, shining a harsh spotlight not only on Officer Vance's misconduct, but also on a hidden history of similar complaints against him in minority communities that had previously been swept under the rug. The Los Angeles Police Department faced immense public pressure for internal accountability and systemic change, with protests erupting outside their headquarters. Ultimately, after an internal investigation and a public disciplinary hearing, Officer Vance was not only fired from the force for his egregious conduct, but also faced criminal charges for assault and abuse of authority. The weight of the video evidence and Officer Rodriguez's testimony was insurmountable. Serena, meanwhile, was acquitted of all charges against her, her act officially deemed a justifiable response to an imminent physical threat to herself and her unborn child. She was publicly cleared, her name and dignity fully restored. The incident resonated far beyond the park. It sparked a citywide conversation about police brutality and systemic racism, forcing difficult but necessary discussions. It led directly to comprehensive mandatory de-escalation training across the police force, with a particular focus on interactions within diverse communities. Furthermore, an independent civilian oversight committee was established, empowered to review complaints and ensure greater accountability. Serena, though shaken by the ordeal and forever changed by the experience, emerged with her dignity not just restored, but amplified. She became an unintentional yet powerful symbol of resilience, the fierce protective instinct of motherhood, and the quiet strength of self-defense. She gave interviews, not out of a desire for fame, but to share her truth and advocate for change. Her story, shared widely, galvanized community efforts for real police reform, helping to ensure that what happened to her in that park would not happen to others in the future. The simple red gown she wore that morning, once a symbol of special anticipation, became a quiet emblem of her defiant strength. She continued her work, teaching others to find their inner calm and physical power, now with an even deeper understanding of what it meant to truly protect oneself. Thanks for watching. Please endeavor to share, like, subscribe, and comment. I also have interesting and engaging pieces in my community. Do well to check the post. See you in the next video.